Hey y'all, it's your girly man Ramawi Doster from Diversity Includes Disability for yet another episode of my so-called disabled life. Where we talk about all kinds of fun shenanigans that we get into as disabled folks and also the people all around us. So I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing Aspen FitzGerald-Dorsey. She is a storyteller whose current medium is video. Past mediums include writing, audio editing, theater, music, and fine art. Once upon a time, she was a tech nerd and teacher, and she's a lifelong nature lover, which I think is so awesome. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here to
Absolutely.
talk to you.
Wonderful. Yeah, cool. So I love to start every episode with asking people who they are and why they do what they do. So, who is Aspen and why does she do what she does?
Yes, this is something I think about every day, and I thought that everyone was like this, but as it turns out, like everyone doesn't just walk around in an existential haze of like, who am I today? Um, like you said, I consider myself to be a storyteller. I think fundamentally my soul, and I think even, as a mom, like I'm trying to craft like the story of my kid's day, like, in a nice way, but like I just like I want to look back at the end of my life and feel like I took a journey and that there's something to talk about, and that I look back and I just love like spending time with people who have all these stories to tell, and I try to live my life in a way that makes it feel like great for me to have those nostalgia moments. Um, and I think I just like I like talking to people. I like listening to other people's stories. I like creating stories. And right now I'm on a journey on my own, having my second child. So we're we're really trying to like just make I'm really trying to enjoy every moment that I can in life, but also just get the most out of it. And that sounds super cliche, but I just, I love a full day. I love interesting people. And I think like that's like my main focus. I think every day is just, how can I be the best version of myself? How can I show up for my kid? How can I show up for the people who I love? But also, how can I contribute to the world? How can I make sure that my story matters? And that I feel good about how I am approaching the world, approaching the people around me. That's my existential journey. um, and I think also there's this element of change that I've been embracing recently, and so it's been kind of fun feeling like, oh, I'm the one sort of blowing with the wind. I just moved to the suburbs. I feel a little bit like I'm just going to turn into a Stepford wife. But I'm also hoping that, you know, all of the personality I've cultivated over the years will stick. Um, so yeah, there's been a lot going on and I'm really excited about it. But I definitely think that, um, you know, that's something, who are you? I think is something that can change every day. And I also think a lot about, when I think about this question, I also think about the fact that all of those little decisions you make every day turn out to be who you are. And so you don't necessarily have to like craft a personality. You just need to make decisions based on your values and hope that like that holds up over time. No one's all good or all bad. No one's going to have a great day every day. No one's going to have a bad day every day. Um, and navigating, especially with navigating things like experience with um having had health issues in the past, going through a pregnancy now, I'm like, all right, well, this is who I am today, um and tomorrow it's going to be different.
I think that was such a beautiful way to answer that because it shows just how much you can change and grow and morph as a person, and also as a mother, who's bringing life into this world, and also as a storyteller. um so when you're looking for stories to tell, whether it's your own or someone else's, um what kind of stories do you look for, and are you looking to like highlight them in a specific way or not?
Yeah, I think that I gravitate towards stories that um, catch people at a profound moment of change. And, as an American who's grown up on American movies, I think that the hero's journey is really just in the back of all of our minds. And there's like, it's this sort of like epic coming of age. I think that's why teen movies kind of stick so hard. So when I was younger, the kinds of like screenplays I would write were very much coming of age. I think now I like to focus on things like, what are the subtleties that bring about those big changes, right? Nobody just is one person one day and then the next day, like, sure, like you have moods and stuff, but especially when you're looking at those moments of profound change, I love hearing people talk about like the first moment that they started to change their mind about something, right? This like I'm not trying to get super political, but this climate is it's cyclical. We go through these changes. If you look at history, like nothing we're going through right now in the US is something that like is unique. And if you look back far enough. But when I look at it, I'm like, well, how did we get here? Everyone's up in arms about, oh, America or whatever. And I'm like, well, but how did we get here? So that's, when I look at that, if I were to make a documentary about what's going on in our climate, like culturally, not just politically, but culturally, I would just sort of go back and be like, well, where are those subtle moments of change? What satisfaction has brought people to want to stay, hold on to certain kinds of power, or what dissatisfaction has made people really want to push the envelope? And so, without being too specific, I think that's what really like rolls my socks up and down for a story. I love a complicated character when you're talking fiction, even in nonfiction, really. But I love it when you can't hate someone who is the villain because they think that they're doing the right thing. I love watching people sort of think that they want to study one thing and then end up doing something else. I think there's a lot of zigs and zags that I've found in my life, and trying to I love, like, those are my favorite stories, are just of people navigating life in unexpected ways. And I think for me, the most fascinating is when you're looking at people's values and how those color how they make decisions, right? I think I'm a good person, so I'm going to do XYZ, right? Or like, I'm not racist, so I couldn't possibly say a racist thing. And then I'm like, oh, tell me more, right? Like, what do so it's like watching how people's like opinions of themselves or what they hold to be their values actually influence their lives. I do this a lot, like low key, trying not to judge, but low key observing like recycling habits of my like crunchiest friends, including myself, right? It's like we all want to do the right thing, but it's such a great example of like it's hard out here, especially in the suburbs. Like nobody's making you compost, or are you gonna? Like, are you gonna drive the extra like 10 minutes to do that? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't make you a bad person if you're not. It doesn't make you a good person if you do. But if that's a value for you, if you really want to feel like you are contributing less waste to the planet, then like at what point does your values like hit the inconvenience of like making you sort of like shift maybe? It's like I'm out here. It's just an example, but it's like I'm out here in the suburbs now and I can't just put the compost in the basement of the building. And I'm like, ooh, what temperature is it going to take for me to just not take it 1 week? So those kinds of things. That's like a small, like, microcosm. I think it's, composting, but for me,
Mhm.
it's
No,
really
but
like, yeah.
I think that's like a sort of like a bigger message about paying attention to, like you said, what rolls your socks up and down, like what gets you that kind of level of excitement or drive to do something about it. And so there are, like that example, there are some people who are really 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 passionate about environmental justice, and they will find a way to recycle and compost and do all the things. And then there's some folks who are like, "Eh," and there's no character judgment in that whatsoever. It's just about what, again, rolls your socks up and down. And I love that analogy. I'm gonna use that. I love it so much. So that's such a great point that you make about that. So circling back a little bit with sort of what gets you fired up, or even like what is part of your story of your life. You talked a little bit about getting sick, and then also not feeling well, and also being pregnant. And so, what has that journey been like for you with your pregnancy and not feeling, 100% for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because pregnancy, especially the second time around, I was much sicker this time. But I, because of my past experience, I have like there's a weird normal that I feel. I'm like, oh, I know this feeling. I know what it feels like to feel like you got hit by a truck before you even get out of bed. And so I think the pregnancy, like I keep forgetting sometimes. I'm like, why am I so tired? And then, my partner will just laugh at me and be like, I don't know, there's a human growing inside of you. And you're like, your center of gravity is not what it used to be. So yeah, the shortest version of this story, of this 20-year journey, is that in in elementary school, I always didn't feel good sometimes, or had weird little like bouts with like migraines or not being able to eat. And it happened every few years. And then in college, I really had a hard time. I was trying to. I was in my first play. I was the lead in my first play, so I didn't know what I was doing. Super green, and then also like my knees hurt every day, and I could not like function. And sometimes I would eat something that seemed normal, and then just be laid out in my dorm room. So I ended up getting diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which sounds great. Like, oh, I have a cool, like, not cool, but I have like a a name. I have a diagnosis. Like anyone who's ever searched for a diagnosis knows what I mean by cool. Like, oh my God, great. I can do research. I have a name. I have doctors. And then I slowly realized that like fibromyalgia is just like some weird, medical term that just means like you hurt. So nobody knew what to do with it. Rheumatologists were like, take these drugs. Like, why were they giving a 19-year-old controlled substances to sleep? It was crazy. So I sort of happened upon this, this journey of food as medicine. And I was really trying to, I already had some dance experience. So I was trying to keep moving. And I think it saved me because most people who get that diagnosis are a little bit older. So you're already sort of set in your ways. Like you probably didn't get the diagnosis after feeling pain, off and on for a couple of, for a few years. It was probably decades building. So I felt very fortunate that I had sort of come into this at a place where I was very active. I could manage it. I could look at my diet. I could read books, oh, like don't eat gluten, try to not eat corn or eat organic or eat whole foods. Like trying to eat whole foods in, you know, 2002 was just like so crunchy. And I did that for 15 years. And that was my identity. I was trying to be the most adventurous I could be, but like I only had so much energy in the day. So it was like every day was like carpe diem, I'm going to do like 9 things and then I would do one of them. and then feel really proud of myself that I did that one thing. Or I'd go to one party and then just not do anything for 3 days. And then I'd have great moments where I'd go for a whole week hanging out with my friends every day and be like, this is the greatest life I've ever lived. And then, 2 weeks later, like, I can't get, I can't get up for work in the morning and I'm late. And it's like, that's like a whole weird identity thing. So for me, managing that taught me a lot about the human body. It taught me a lot about food. It taught me a lot about just the weird gut biome that we're still trying to figure out. It taught me a lot about ADHD and the mind body connection and all of this other stuff. Before we started talking about neurotypical and all of that, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I was thinking about because I was just like, well, this is affecting my brain. Like, what is brain fog? So for me, fast forward, to I think 2016, I got really, really sick, couldn't work, was really feeling like, oh, this is it for me. Like, I am, I've become one of the invisible, as Jen Brea would say. I just could not participate in life. And it took 6 months to figure out what was going on. One of my doctors was like, you have adult onset Still's disease. You like can't do this, can't do that. You have to take these anti-inflammatory drugs that are going to just mess up everything else about your health, but you won't be in pain. It was wild. And I had one doctor at an ER just say, well, if your stomach's upset, just stop eating gluten and dairy and see what happens. And so all of a sudden, all of these things came together and I stopped eating gluten and dairy. I took all these drugs. I was under the care of a very kind rheumatologist and I felt better. And it's hard when you're kitchen sinking, when you throw everything you have at a problem, you have no idea what solved it. So, but what was interesting was during that process, the fibromyalgia pain went away. I couldn't get up, I couldn't walk, I couldn't think straight, and I couldn't really eat, but the pain was gone. And so I was like, well, I'm both better and worse. And then slowly over the next 6 months, it reversed and whatever we were throwing at it helped. And I feel like I got an entirely new life. And that is not the story for most people who are dealing with fibromyalgia, any kind of chronic pain, honestly, because it's draining. And, the chronic fatigue, like what does that mean? You know, ME, sometimes people call it, sometimes there is a diagnosis they can see in the brain. I had an MRI and they were like, you're fine. I'm like, but I can't read. It was wild. So, long story longer, um, it's been a weird existential shift from being a person who is always sick and always has to micromanage my diet, micromanage my time, really like do mental gymnastics to maintain my friendships so that people don't think that I'm just flaking on them because I don't love them or I don't care, I don't want to spend time with them, to being able to overexert myself and just be tired a little bit, or having a toddler and feeling like everything I'm feeling is like normal. I'm not extra tired. I'm just tired because toddlers are exhausting mentally and physically, and wonderful, lovely, amazing, so much fun. Um, so yeah, it's been a weird shift. When I got pregnant, I really thought like, oh no, what if everything comes back? I don't know what to do. Can I even get pregnant? And that's been such a weird journey for me, like in an amazing way, you know? I used to joke, my friends would be like, how are you? And I'd be like, hashtag blessed. This is great. I'm having a baby and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to do this. But I do think that it's weird. Some of it crops back up where I'm like, now I'm in the third trimester of a second pregnancy. I'm no spring chicken. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, are my hips like ever going to recover? Like when I wake up in the morning, I'm just like, it's just this wave of anxiety. And then I have to like remind myself, it's like waking up from a bad dream, like, oh, I'm okay. And while I'm very thankful for that, and I'm very grateful that that is my experience, because I know that I'm the minority, it's weird to feel like your identity is linked to an illness that you no longer have.
No, I totally get that. And I think with like the whole like chronic illness, autoimmune journey, we fluctuate so much, especially if you've had it for a very long time and dealt with umpteen doctors, with umpteen medications and umpteen symptoms. I've been making a joke lately that I'm like the Pokemon of disability because I've got so many different, you know, medications and doctors and Barbie accessories and all that. So, has that journey? How has that journey been for you?
I think it's been I felt like in the beginning I talked to a lot of people who were like, "What did you do?" And I felt almost like a guru. People were coming to me like a guru. What did you do? How did you kick it? How did you figure this out? Like, how are you better? It was it the gluten. Should I stop it? And I'm like, for me, yes, that's part of it. I am one person. And so for me, like I don't eat gluten anymore. When I do, I don't feel great. And that's sure that could be part of your journey too. But there are people who stop eating gluten for years and they still have all the things. Like it's not there's no one thing. And I think with long COVID, actually, that has really like been something I'm really interested in because I feel like so many more people are dealing with this with the aftermath of something that modern medicine doesn't understand. Um, and so I think for me, like I'm just trying to take it one day at a time. And I'm also trying to lean into the good moments, not overdo it. Um, but also what I try to do is support those around me who need it. If I've reached out to some people, sometimes they don't respond. But I think in the beginning there was a lot of like, you can save me because you saved yourself. And it was like, well, some of that is like a lot of the diligent work that I put in, right? And shout out to my acupuncturists who I probably would not like have even figured out like half of what I figured out without them. Like they made it possible for me to go to work. They made it possible for me to live my life in a way that wasn't, that was a little bit more open physically. And, and it was amazing just to dive into the like, I think for me, it's turned me into a huge nerd about ancient medicine and different not even just that, right? Like Western medicine's one thing, Eastern medicine's one thing, old school stuff, that like our grandparents used to do, like cod liver oil, but then it's like really ancient stuff. Like no one can tell you scientifically why acupuncture works. People try, but that's not the point. It was super effective for me and in multiple ways. And so it's like there's a lot of stuff like that that I don't know that I would have been open to had I not been in a more desperate place. Um, but it's really expanded my mind. And I think it helps the way that I parent and feed my toddler is also now like, oh, now I'm really interested in like metabolic science and what it means. And like, no shade to people who want to feed their kids sugar. But for me, I want to see what it looks like if I don't. And so I think that there's a lot of that kind of stuff that I never thought I'd be the kind of parent who like micromanages what they feed their kid, like, and now I'm like, well, it's fine, but New York State is like, hey, we're gonna give you free food for school, and I'm like, yes, and then I'm like, none of that's gonna be organic. Like, so like,
It's gonna be a lot of mac and cheese and processed peanut butter and
yes,
I'm sure
yes,
some cookies up in there.
yeah, so
But
now
I
I'm
feel like
like,
that's great.
yeah,
It's
but
great
yeah.
that you're trying to feed your kids better so that you don't have replication of some of the things that you've gone through. And I think that's one of the things people don't really think about, that autoimmune disorders are hereditary. Yes, they can happen in your body if you have certain, I read years ago that if you have enough aspartame, it can cause an autoimmune disorder to flare up in your body. And in the 90s, that's where a lot of women were suddenly coming down with lupus. And they were like, "Wait, I don't have this in my family." And then the doctor be like, "Well, are you drinking soda?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have like 2 liters a day." And as soon as
Right.
they cut it out, the lupus completely cleared up. But oftentimes it's hereditary. Like I have it on my mom's side of the family, and it came down through them with the lupus, but no one had it as aggressively. So I think that's awesome that you're trying to start from a different place for your kids so that they don't have to deal with that kind of wild struggle with their health.
Right,
So
because there's genetic predisposition, not just for autoimmune disorders, but for a lot of things. And then there's manifestation and what makes those things manifest. And now I'm the one who's like, when people are like, oh, who cares what shampoo you use? I'm like, right, but if there's bioaccumulation and there's a weird thing that's going to disrupt my endocrine system, and it's going to keep disrupting my endocrine system because it's just going to accumulate in my body, then maybe if I switch to a shampoo that like doesn't have that, that certain things won't manifest. Like I'm not an expert on this. I'm just like an, they what's I want a term for this. Armchair psychologist. I want like
what?
like
There's got to
armchair,
be like an armchair autoimmune person. I
right?
don't know.
Like how do I Um, but it is a double-edged sword too, right? Because if my kid's at a birthday party, am I not gonna let him eat chocolate cake? Because now I know that chocolate has lead in it, and like, oh, like it's a lot of high fructose corn syrup. Like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna bring my own homemade cupcake for you to eat, and I'm not going to make you not eat a cupcake. But at home, I'm not gonna buy cupcakes because you go to enough birthday parties. So yeah, but it is, armchair, like, I guess just, yeah, I don't even know, like, biologist, nutritionist slash,
No, but I appreciate that because here you are trying to do something different with your kids, which I think is an amazing thing. And oftentimes I think sometimes we don't know what we don't even know, and people just continue on. And not that it's traumatic to feed your kids cake. Also, though, if it's putting all that sugar in their body and then the additional chemicals, and then they have they're susceptible in their immune system to developing these illnesses, then it stands to reason that you are, you know, I hate to say it. I love cake and cookies stuff too, but I also recognize it's not always the best thing for our bodies.
yeah, I mean, I remember, I grew up in Virginia, which a lot of people don't consider the South, but, if you've grown up there, you understand that like every field trip was a Confederate battlefield. And so my friends went to college in the capital of the Confederacy, like it's the South. And, I grew up with like a lot of amazing Southern food, but then I go to make it now and I'm like, I'm not going to start this recipe with a stick of butter. Even though it's going to be delicious if I do. So it's hard to let go of some of that stuff. And there's a lot of it's not just boomers. It's also, I think it's in every generation, to be honest with you. I think boomers get a bad rap for being like, I put myself up on my bootstraps. I think that, and like it's fine, don't overthink it. I think a lot of people have that, and it's not just boomers and your great grandparents who lived through the depression. I think it that has filtered down through everything, and there's a lot of, well, we did this and that we were fine. Like I eat, there's so many people who seemingly have healthy habits who then fall ill or have a heart attack. There are people who eat what some might consider junk food on a daily basis and their cholesterol is fine. You know, so I think it's not there are people out there who are outliers, but I do think that I'm finding even that like for my own mental health and for my own like, when I eat a lot of sugar or eat a lot of like, when I don't focus on how much protein I'm getting or how much like do I have enough vitamin D? Like who knew vitamin D was so important? There's a lot of stuff like that where I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna melt down and I don't know why. Like I feel like at the toddler, I'm gonna have a tantrum. And it's like, well, why do I feel like this? Oh, because all I ate this morning was like, you know, prepackaged like gluten-free waffles and syrup and, you know, and then I had some Halloween candy and then like, and then I didn't take a nap when I was tired. Like very basic stuff where you're like, oh, maybe if I just had some protein in there, like I might not feel so crazy at noon. Um, but yeah, and I think there's a lot of like ADHD and autism and neurodivergence and all of this stuff. And I am so glad that we're digging into this stuff now. I also think that like every single person can't eat the same crap. And that's the thing. Like we can't do it. And depending on how your brain works and how your body is made up, you need to find like what works for you. And that's the thing. Like I think instead of people looking at me and saying like, well, I don't want to eat like you eat, they're just like, I'm going to eat like the average American diet. I'm like, no, there should be no such thing as the average American diet. Like find what works for you. And if you have the privilege, because it is a privilege, to be able to tailor your diet to your body, that's what you should be doing, in my humble opinion. And then after that, it'll be much easier to suss out like how to medicate for other stuff that happens. Because it's like that was part of what happened with me is I was drinking like 7 Sunkist a day. Like, of course I didn't feel good. Like,
No, that's very accurate, and I think that sometimes we even take for granted just how much of a privilege it is to eat healthy or even to do certain medical things. Like when you were talking about the acupuncture, I was thinking back to when I used to go do acupuncture and how it became too expensive for me to continue. And how now that I have insurance, better insurance actually, I can actually go do some. So I put a little mental note to reach back out to the clinic because it's a really great one of the places I found. It's fully accessible. They actually have like COVID restrictions in the office, so they're all wearing masks, which I really
amazing.
appreciate. And so yeah, so it's about can we even afford to eat as healthy and be as healthy? And I think sometimes people are so judgy when they're like, oh, why are people living off of chips and soda? Well, it's like, first of all, if you live in a transit desert, chances are you don't have any vegetables in your corner store. And then if that's all you can buy, and that's cheaper than buying some vegetables and certain things, then that's what you're just going to live on. And then you're going to, deal with diabetes and deal with high blood pressure and deal with all kinds of things that your body isn't necessarily designed to do forever and ever. Um, so I think that's really that really touches to how sometimes health, just the basics of staying healthy and being healthy, aren't that accessible or that easy for folks, which is kind of
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think, you know, my sister and I have this conversation all the time. Um, there was a time when I was doing really well and she was struggling, and she said something to me like, "Oh, I got this thing, but I got it at Walmart. Don't judge me." And I was like, "I'm sorry that I made you feel like I'm going to judge you." Um, right, you know, when I was growing up and Walmart came around, we were all just like, "Yes, now I can afford to dress myself in new clothes, you know, and for the new school year because Walmart came in, Target came in. Yes, those big stores like destroyed mom and pop shops. But at the same time, if you were at the bottom of the ladder, you weren't shopping because you couldn't afford it. You know, and yes, is it more sustainable to like mend your clothes and all of that? Of course. Of course, it's very trendy now, but in the 1990s, that was just not a thing. So, I think that we
Yeah.
have to like remove the shame from, you know, from people who I think we need to remove the shame from not being able to maybe live fully by some of those values. If you need to shop at Walmart because that's where you need to buy your kids clothes and like that is affordable for you, then like don't be hard on yourself. If like you're also, you know, feeling like you don't want to support that brand, but that's what's in your town. It's like, sure. Like, how many people are bending over backwards right now to not shop on Amazon, and how many of those people are 100% successful? Like, it's really difficult to be perfect. And I think that this is something too that, like, from being sick, that I've always had perfectionist tendencies, but I definitely think that, like, when you only have like 3 good hours in the day, it's you can become really hard on yourself if you don't use those hours to 100% peak efficiency, right? If I watch a show and eat cereal instead of cooking for myself and having a heart to heart with one of my closest friends, then I feel like I've wasted the day. And I think that or like I wasted that time. Like, oh, I only had 3 good hours. Now I don't feel good. And I feel like I wasted those 3 good hours because I didn't live them perfectly. And so it's like, for me, they go back and forth. It dovetails, right? It's like, oh, I shopped at Amazon today, or I like laid in bed for an extra hour, or I didn't give myself the chance to lay in bed for an extra hour. I got up and I got moving and I did all this stuff. And it's like, well, but maybe what you needed was rest. Like, there's so many there's so many little things that happen, I think, when you don't really feel like your life is always your own to live, when you feel like the consequences of your decisions are so heavy. Now I look back and I'm like, well, those consequences were disproportionate. And the fact that I didn't realize that, the fact that I was hard on myself about that, is sad. I look back and I feel like I didn't I didn't maybe give myself the grace that I deserved. But it's so easy to get caught up in it, right? When you don't feel your best, or when you don't know if you're going to feel your best. I don't know how I'm going to feel tomorrow. So let me get everything done today. And that's also a trap. Then you wake up the next day and everything hurts, or you've re-injured something that like was healing, and it's like, well, but I felt so good. I just felt like I had to do it. And so I think there's this perfectionism that's going around that, for me now, I see even in our culture. It's not just me. Like, yes, I'm struggling with, how I process my own struggle, like my own health issues. But then I see it too in other people. Like, it just dovetails into all these other things where I'm like, what? Like, if you don't compost 1 week, like, you're still doing it 90% of the time, you're still like doing great. If you order from Amazon like twice a month, that's probably less than like what most people do, you know? So I think that there's a lot of that kind of stuff that, like, you wouldn't think would come out of having been sick and having looked back on that. But for me, like, there's a lot of that, like, sort of philosophical, psychological stuff that I see now. Um, and it's hard. I see it on, online too. I see people trying to like put all these filters to look amazing. And I'm like, okay, do what you want to do. Like, beauty YouTube is a thing and I appreciate it. But the other side of it is I'm like, wow, these people aren't even sick and they're really trying to like put, like, they're being trying to be perfect like in every post. And I'm like, that seems like a lot of pressure. And so it's like, for me, that's the lens through which I see a lot of things. It's like, I'm now looking for perfectionism. I'm now looking for like that kind of stuff, and I see it everywhere.
I think that's such a fascinating thing that you're bringing up about how we're we're first of all, we lack giving ourselves grace or even kindness, and that we have to be, you know, strict about our things. And but then when you're thinking about chronic illness or disability, how you can't always do things the same way other people are doing them, and then thinking about how, we're hard on ourselves and difficult on ourselves, and some of that seems very much by design. They want us to feel, they want us to stress ourselves out and feel bad about things, and maybe get our immune system all out of whack to keep us. Yeah, I get the feeling that the higher ups are very much looking at us to try to keep us to be good little worker bees and not have enough energy to do anything else. So in the face of all that stuff, and in the face of, like, trying to be kind to ourselves, how are you kind to yourself?
So I am not going to pretend like I did any of this alone. I've had a lot of, I think I consider it privilege in terms of the support that I've had from the people around me. I have a big family, they're very supportive. My immediate family is so amazing and loving and accepting. And also, with the real talk. So, like, not allowing me to beat myself up on the phone. So that's part of it. And I've had professional help. I've had, when I feel like I'm struggling with something, like I call a therapist. I try to figure out some stuff. I read a lot of books. I can't tell you how many parenting books or like health books. I've read even the stuff that I think might be swill, I still read it. Even the stuff that when I know it's pseudoscience, I still read it because I want to know like what I can get out of that. I want to understand how other people are looking at it, and I take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I think that's like, that's where I'm trying to, I think just giving myself that education helps with the grace, because then I can be like, oh, it was really difficult for me to get my homework done, but I also wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until late into college, and so maybe like the McDonald's and the bubble yum and I mean, delicious things, a hot take, you know I'm not gonna badmouth those things because they were amazing. Like when I was young, I always had candy in my mouth, but I'm like, I don't know, like maybe some of those chemicals weren't great for my brain. Maybe the cyclical like rising and falling of my blood sugar at extremes was not great for my attention span. Like maybe that like free school lunch that I got and I like that shouldn't have turned into uh chocolate milk in Cocoa Krispies, right? Like that was maybe not like the best breakfast to be trying to learn trigonometry. So,
You too?
right? I'm like, oh. So I think for me, like looking back on those decisions, because I had a friend too who was like, every time you have a flare up, you act like you're just not doing it right. And she's like, I don't understand why you think any of this is your fault. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the illusion of control because I have some control with like diet, exercise, meditation, acupuncture, all of this. Like it really helps. But you're just going to have bad days, any human. But especially if you have like a chronic pain issue or like, an autoimmune disorder of any kind. Um, so I think that that's the biggest thing for me is I look back and I think we don't have control over everything and we shouldn't try to exert control over everything. And prioritizing your energy is enough. Don't second guess your decisions. Like if you know that like you're not going to have 100% of like what you could have in a day, then that's fine. To me, it's like all about prioritizing. If I can try to prioritize well, then I don't have to be hard on myself about what I got done and what I didn't get done. Like I got the most important things done. And sometimes that just means like I missed the marathon on Sunday because I'm too pregnant to be on my feet for an indefinite number of hours. Like my partner took my 3-year-old down. I had such FOMO. Like, my brother-in-law was running the marathon and I was like, I want to be there. But it's like, I can't, I don't know that this is going to be good for me. So I'm not going to do it. And so I think that when you get into those moments and then not second guessing it later, accepting that I have FOMO, texting with the people who like will send me photos, and then later just letting it go is really, I think, like for me, what has helped the most. And, leaning into the love around me, that's really helpful. But yeah, it's like you can't be second guessing yourself on a regular basis because it becomes a habit. And these are the things, right? Like now, even now, like it sounds like I feel like I know what I'm talking about, but like I'm trying to like recenter myself and get like a meditation habit going that I used to have that I don't have so that I can like, you know, give birth and feel good about it, like I'm looking forward to birth. It's another hot take. But it's like, all right, let me get back into it. Like, I haven't been doing that. Am I going to beat myself up because I haven't been meditating for 7 months? No. But am I going to start meditating more and try to like be more mindful? Yes. So it's like, right? And do I beat myself up sometimes? Yes, we all do. But like, again, even then, don't pile on. Don't be like, I did this wrong, and then I'm beating myself up, and then like, what? Who am I? Like, no, just try your best to like, live each moment. Again, I guess like very cheesy, in a mindful way where you're aware of what's happening without necessarily getting like dragged into like negativity.
No, I really love that, and I love that how you basically humanize it for everyone because it's like, dude, just cut yourself a little slack. Like you're a human being. Like no one on this planet is Superman or Superwoman or super entity, and so therefore you're gonna trip up sometimes. You're gonna make mistakes. You're not always gonna be perfect. And I think that sometimes higher ups, whether it's certain politicians or even like actors or models or even on those YouTube videos, it people try to put out this image of perfection, which doesn't exist if you're a human. There is no human being who is perfect. So could still some slack, y'all. There you go. That came from Aspen. There you go. You're welcome. Um, So I would the last question, do you have anything that you're looking forward to?
I think I'm looking forward to a lot of things actually. It's a very hopeful time in my life. I joke about being a Stepford wife, but I am looking forward to, I feel very privileged that I was able to buy a home. And I say that in a public forum because there's so much baggage around financial literacy and financial, I don't even want to say like privilege because I'm not rich, but I think just being able to have like the kind of financial security that you have when you own a home is such a big deal. And I think like as a person who was raised, ooh, as a person who was raised by amazing parents who like really taught me, I think, the value of humans along with the value of things like money. um I'm really looking forward to stepping into a new life where I own a home, and I feel like that is like a huge thing I can like check off my bucket list of just like, you know. And for me, I'm looking forward to switching up my concept of myself from the I lived in New York City for decades and now I'm not there. And it's really hard not to grieve that and feel like I'm just not as cool. um, but I'm looking forward to giving birth. I'm looking forward to creating a home metaphorically, not just like physically. It's like, okay, we're here, but you gotta like, you have to, create a vibe. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, like I said, I'm looking forward to birth, which is also a little bit of a hot take. I know there's a lot of trauma going around, and everyone's entitled to feel their feelings about that, especially if you did experience trauma. But the other side of it is like, I'm really looking forward to going through that process again. I again feel like I'm lucky to be in the position to do it. And it's such a weird, like once or twice in a lifetime thing for most people. Um, I'm really looking forward to starting that process again. And yeah, and I am looking forward to like, driving to the grocery store and not carrying my bags on my shoulders. It's gonna be a weird life, but I'm trying to look forward to it versus just like, oh, I'm not in the grind of New York City anymore. I'm looking forward to sitting on, my back porch and watching birds. like, and I'm looking forward to, I think, one of the things I want to do, right? You want to raise good humans, but I also want to instill like just my love of experiencing things and living on this planet. I love, this is why I love nature, right? Because you just don't know what you're going to get. I want to like bring my kids out into the woods and be like, hey, let's go camping. Let's look at this. Like, I want to like, I'm really looking forward to, I think, just creating a life and creating an experience so that my kids can experience that excitement about stuff. That's why I say, like, with a 3-year old, like, you're just like, wow, did you really just roll your eyes at me at 3 years old? But then the other side of it is they get so excited about things. I'm like, look at this glow stick. They're like, or like my kids are just like, I want this flower. It's a weed on the side of the road, but I'm not going to burst his bubble. Technically, he's right. It is a flower, right? So it's like those are the moments I'm looking forward to. I really want to um, help create that excitement. And I think now is like the perfect time. I know there's a lot going on in the world. At various times in history, the world is a, very specific kind of show. But I think, to me, like, if you can cultivate that, like, I don't know how my parents did it. Maybe that's just who I am, but I want them to have that excitement that I have about things, Like, my partner called me outside the other day and was like, "Look at these birds. They're just swirling and they're so loud." And he's like, "Wait, the moment that they all fly away from the tree, they get quiet. Listen, listen." And I'm just like watching him just like nerd out over like the birds in the backyard. And it was true. They're so loud, definitely loud, and then all of a sudden they just get quiet and they fly away. And I was like, yeah, I never would have noticed that. But I love that you're excited about it. And I want my kids to be excited like that. I don't want them to fall into the trap of being jaded ever.
First of all, I loved all of that. Holy crap. And also, like, I feel like sometimes there's just so much negative news about especially women of color giving birth, having traumatic experiences. So how freaking yeah, like let's celebrate yours. Like not only just having one, but probably gonna have another one, a successful birth, and your baby's great. And so I want to celebrate that, especially in the chronic illness world that does not often happen. And so hell freaking yeah. And also like hell yeah to you loving nature. I think a lot of people are always like, your black ass don't like nature. And if you do, you're not fully black. Like first of all, there's no racial limits on love for nature or birds or flowers or weeds or any of the like. So it's like, come on, y'all, get off that. So I love that you were basically building, raising these little nature lovers. Like that's awesome. So hell yeah. So like I love that and I want to celebrate that and I hope everyone else is celebrating that too because it's like come on y'all.
Yeah. And
Um
I will acknowledge, like, if we all have to be vigilant out here and we all have to like stand up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves and do all of the things to make sure that like we're okay in this world, especially if you're a person of color, or if you're a minority, wherever you are. I totally support that. And I want to make sure that like we can still experience the joy of life, and even in the moments that aren't joyful, that they can be like really intense experiences that, can help us grow.
No, I totally agree with that, and I think that speaks to like I think all of this. I've been talking to a lot of people about this specific thing. How sometimes society wants us to stay one dimensional because it's easier to dehumanize us if we don't have more about us. If you're just flat on the page, then no one has to care about you. If you're just a nameless, faceless entity, and so I love how multidimensional you are because I feel like we're all multidimensional. There's so much more than just this meat suit that people are looking at. There's so much more to us. So I love that you brought that up, and I love this entire interview. I think it was like just a splash of color and freshness that I think sometimes we're missing, especially in this dumpster fire of a poop fest that's going on in our world right now. That's the only thing I can think of. This is a dumpster fire of poop, like you guys. What are we? What are and this is like we're choosing this. Like why?
I know. I know. But I appreciate the opportunity to, speak with you and just give my perspective on things. But I think it's important to have conversations. I really appreciate that we're having conversations about life and not just about like disability itself. And, I think that's one of the things that I think it took me a long time to realize. It's like you're living with fill in the blank, right? It's not this, like, you are not defined by fill in the blank, right? Like your disability, being a Black woman, being, a New Yorker, even, dare I say. It's like,
Yeah. No. Mhm.
yeah. So I really appreciate that. And I appreciate like all of the work that you're doing in this space, to just
Thank
bring
you.
life.
Thank you. I want to keep having conversations so that people can see that there's so much more to our lives, and that if we see our humanity, even just a teeny bit, maybe that'll help people to be better and kinder to each other and to ourselves. So that's what's up. And thank you so much. This was so fun. I will have the picture and her bio in the show notes. And if anybody just happens to want to reach out to you, is there a way for them to reach you, or are you just gonna be like, nah, leave me
I think honestly, um, I would not, it's hilarious to me that this has become a thing, but I think like professionally, like most of this, like the most reliable way to reach out to me would be LinkedIn. Um, because that's just the place where like all of my stuff kind of stacks up. I believe, yeah. So I think you could just, my name, Aspen Fitzgerald-Dorsey. I'm the only one of me on like LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
alone. Hmm.
I am at Where's Aspen basically everywhere. Um, but I admittedly am just not as engaged with things like social media. So,
You got a few things going on, so it's all good. We'll
that's the
keep.
thing. It's like I love a good Instagram story, but I'm not posting them myself currently.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, and thank you for sharing yourself with my audience, because I think that they will love and appreciate you just as much as I did. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is
Of
wonderful.
course.